So anyway, that's just kind of the nature of sin. It comes in our thoughts and comes all the way through to our action. And when we act, that's when we're in trouble. That's when we're in trouble, because then if you get used to that kind of acting out, then what happens is what? It becomes an addiction. And so now, I was like shocked when I went to Palisades, and in my first grade of ninth grade class, first ninth grade class, English class, I asked the question, "How's your summer?" That's a pretty innocuous question. And they said, well, one of them went down the row. Well, I was six weeks in rehab. I was, and then even worse things than that, actually. And I was shocked that a ninth grader could have been through rehab already. Just seemed awkward to me that would be the case. But anyway, when an action becomes repeatable, then it can lead very easily to addiction. A lot of people who are alcoholics, for instance, they start out just being casual drinkers even. There are those people that have the gene or whatever it's called, but for the most part, people walk into being an alcoholic just by using it all the time. And they start to rely on it all the time, or marijuana, or heroin, or all the various things that people will use to assuage the feelings they have inside themselves to make themselves feel better. Well, what they do find, though, is that they don't feel better, and they become dependent on that action. If it's lustful actions, if it's drug-oriented ones, if it's just whatever the behavior pattern is, people will develop it over time. It leads to addiction. And so I would say, living in Los Angeles, that there is so much addiction going around there amongst young people. They've gotten so used to living a particular way of life that's really not the truth, that it's hard for them to break that habit, to break those habits of addiction. Again, we would say, well, maybe they need counseling, maybe they need a little therapy or whatever, but what they need is, we have. What they need beyond that is a church with loving members, sacraments that are performed regularly, and with it and a willingness to be acceptable and to be accepted in the church itself.
Father, microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not used to wearing one of these. I apologize. A fall begins with a momentary thought that will arouse a negative passion, which leads to acting on it. It starts with the image or concept in the heart, imagination. Then the image becomes a temptation, because the heart has added value to the image of the concept. The value is, in this instance, is a false reality. Then we approve of the false reality, which leads to transforming the image into deed. Then if we continue to act by allowing the false image into deed, such a behavior will become an addiction. This is, of course, I have references for all of this, but this is really church fathers and all that. This is what they teach. Sin is consenting to evil thought and transforming this thought into practice. That's what sin is. So that's what makes it difficult in today's world. We need more priests, actually, that are trained in how to deal with this stuff and help young people and just people in general, how to help them fight against this, the difficulty of these passions that become, just habitual at a certain point. Any questions so far? Yes.
So maybe you could talk a little bit about what this means.
You just led right into it. All right. Thank you, Modesty, for keeping me on task here. That's right. Embracing the virtues leads us to honesty, zeal, honoring the truths of revelation and an understanding of the fallen human condition, embracing the kingdom of heaven, a knowledge that the angels watch over us, realizing God's bounty, taking on true responsibility, thoughts about God's mercy, understanding the truth of the scriptures, honoring and thinking about the Holy Theotokos, love of the Lord and being Christ-centered, embracing the zeal of the holy martyrs, and reading and studying spiritual books and the Gospels. These are how you embrace the virtues. Okay, understanding logos me. Understanding assaultive thoughts and how to deal with them is key to living a victorious life in Christ. The Greek word logos me, pronounced logos me, are thoughts and the thought images that come to us. I'm reading it. That's the problem. To lead us. I'm not really good at reading these things. But anyway, better at speaking them. There are many church fathers who teach us how to identify them and how to deal with them. St. John of the Ladder, in the Ladder of Divine Ascent, spoke of various stages of how they afflict us and how we should deal with them. Stages of logos me. And a lot of this information comes from St. John of the Ladder, but some of it comes from if you know the bishop up in Alaska, Bishop Alexander, he is a great speaker. And we got to know him when he came to our diocesan assembly last year. Deborah and I did, and talked to him very close at hand, because in Alaska they're dealing with a lot of people with addiction, alcohol in particular, and it just ransacks the people in their life. So anyway, he has some very first-hand knowledge, and I think he is a professional therapist as well. So anyway, stages of logos me. The assault stage, when random thoughts from without and within first attack our minds. The interaction stage, which involves opening up a dialogue, an actual exchange with the logos mos. The stage of consent, wherein you've made a decision to act. This is the beginning of sin. The sin of captivity, which is the moment when the person succumbs, enabling repeat attacks. The stage of passion or obsession, where the person loses control and the sin becomes compulsive, where they can't avoid it, where that's how they turn. Instead of turning to God, they turn to this thing that they have embraced in their life. And they worship the creation and not the Creator. And I think that, to me, that's a really key point, that we're here to worship the Creator in fullness and truth. We to worship Him in fullness and truth, you know. That's why, you know, in our church we have vigils, and we have lots of liturgies that happen throughout the week, about 4, sometimes 5 a week. We have a divine liturgy. We have prayers and akathist being hymned in the church almost on a nightly basis, and we involve all the people in the practice of that. And the more that they can practice and learn, the more they can learn to fight the sin in their own life, because it's in the scriptures, it's in the lives of saints, it's in everything that is Orthodox. And so that's why we should listen, read, or however you get a book down. Even now we are trying to introduce them in our church to the kind of an Orthodox mindset, an Orthodox worldview. And so Father Seraphim Rose, he was someone who really believed in instructing people in the culture of the Orthodox Church, the culture itself. And so he would talk about these high states of being involved. But one of the things that people in my generation did, that people in today's generation find is kind of thick books to read. But for instance, I've tried to get people to read Dostoevsky, the Brothers Karamazov. Now, that book has, just for your information, has sacraments built into it. It takes place in an Orthodox community. It shows people in various stages of life. The father being very controlling and obsessive and greedy and gluttonous. His son, who's always combating him. The other one who's turned away from God. And then one who is totally toward God. And then you have his half-son, who is also not a very good guy as well. So that's a great story. But to try to get people to read a 1,000-page novel is not that easy. They're busy. They've got stuff to do. They've got, things that can manifest much quicker on their phone. And that's the problem, is that they're so used to immediate gratification, immediate sensation, that asking someone to read a book like that is very difficult.